Hi, my name is Lloyd Wright. I'm a licensed acupuncturist and herbalist, and I'd like to welcome you to the Stellar Physical Medicine Educational Series. Well, this week it reached about 110 in the Phoenix metro area. It's the middle of summer, nothing unusual about that, but we thought it might be a great time to talk about hot flashes and heat in the body and give you some ideas on maybe how to better manage that for yourself. So, we're doing our series this time on the anatomy of a hot flash. So basically, we'd like to start off by giving folks the understanding of how traditional Chinese medicine views heat in the body. And to do that, let's start with the concept of yin and yang. And so if we take a look at the symbol of yin and yang here, we can see many people have seen this. It's a pretty common icon. We see it in a lot of Kung Fu studios. It's predominant in Chinese philosophy, as well as the basis of a lot of theory in Chinese medicine. But its concept is that the entire universe is constructed out of polar opposites. So you can think of it as positive charge versus negative charge. You can think of it as up, down, heat versus cold, male versus female, ice rather than steam. The list goes on and on and on. But the point is that these two features of the universe are in a dynamic balance. And when they're in balance and harmony, everything runs fine. Problems occur when one becomes excessive or too dominant over the other one. And then an imbalance in the yin-yang begins to occur. And that's what really creates a lot of our problems. So we're going to take a look at how does this happen. Now, in terms of heat, we kind of divide this into three general categories. We can get excess heat from environmental. In other words, it's just plain hot outside, and so we feel hot because we're in a hot environment. If you're in a steam bath, you're going to get the same effect. So that's an environmental factor that will, in fact, cause us to feel hot. Logical, makes sense, we all know that. The things that we talk about today to cool off will help cool you off on those hot days if in this external heat condition as well. But that's not really a pathogenic condition, it's just a condition of the environment. Okay, so the number 2 item is what we call a pathogenic factor. A pathogenic factor would be an invasion of some type of infection or possibly inflammation. Infections can include viruses, bacteria, overgrowth of yeast. We find that yeast itself will produce some 72 different toxic substances, and sometimes these will have an effect of causing internal heat for the body. So if we have a pathogenic factor, we have to deal with that a little bit differently than the other ways that we would work with it. The third area is internal imbalance of yin and yang, or what we might call, what a lot of modern acupuncturists refer to as a deficiency or abnormal problem when the kidney adrenal complex, or most close analogy from a Western medicine point of view, would be a hormonal imbalance. Imbalance basically of the estrogen versus testosterone and where it should be for each individual. So let's look at 4 different possibilities of how this can play out. And we're going to frame this in terms of yin and yang. And if we take a look at the bar graph right over here, we can see that what we've got is 3 basic lines: a very high line, which I'm calling excess, a middle line, which we're calling normal, and the low line, which is your base. So scenario number 1 is if the yin component, which is represented with the blue, is weak, it's very low, but the yang component is normal, we have a condition where there is, relatively speaking, too much heat. This is the classical example of a menopausal type hot flash. Deficiency of yin, the yang is normal. Next condition is both items are normal. The yin is at a nice, normal, healthy level. The yang is at a nice, healthy, normal level. This condition should present no symptoms apart from environmental. Next one is when the yang is excess and the yin is normal. If the yang is excess, this really represents the pathogenic condition. There's a reason that there's too much heat in the body. It could be bacterial, it could be toxic, it could be something else. And then the last condition, which is probably the most severe one, is when the yin is deficient and the yang is excess. This condition will present the worst case scenario or the most significant hot flashes or heat condition in the body. And what that could mean is the hormones are out of balance and there's a pathogenic factor involved. Remember, there's no rule that says that a person can only have one diagnosis at a time. Sometimes several things are at play at once, and this creates a complex condition. Right now, when we talk about textbook type conditions, it looks all very simple. So another way of looking at this, and this is actually one of my favorite analogies, is to think of your body as a steam engine. Basically, you have a boiler, that's your body. You have, inside that boiler, you have water goes in, and the fire underneath the boiler heats the water, creates steam, which then goes out and runs everything, all the machinery that that steam engine is attached to. Our bodies are very similar. If there is enough fire and enough water, everything runs fine according to design. But what happens if somebody throws too many logs on the fire? All of a sudden, too much heat, it burns off the water. The water then becomes deficient. Now the whole system winds up running too hot. And people will experience that as excess heat, hot flash, and eventually that steam coming out up here will not become sufficient to run the machinery. And people will start to feel exhaustion as a result of that as well. So it's very possible for people to have too much heat or too much energy in the system and subsequently become exhausted at the same time. Because again, yin and yang, hot and cold, damp and dry, all have to be in balance for optimal health and optimal running. So let's take a look at some common strategies. What do we do in traditional Chinese medicine? Now, the beauty that I love about this is it's all very logical. Strategies. Strategy 1, sedate the excess fire. Makes sense. If there's excess fire, you want to calm that down a little bit. Strategy 2, strengthen the water. If there's enough water to go with the fire, everything comes into balance, life is good. Number 3, and this is something I hadn't mentioned, is we need to watch for complications in the liver. Liver oftentimes will get congested, will run into some various types of problems, inflammation, and that again creates a complex situation. Could be pathogenic factors involved with that. When you run into something that's a little complex, you really should see a professional acupuncturist, because professional acupuncturists are trained to recognize what to do in these complex conditions. When we have simple conditions, a lot of things you can do for yourself to rebalance your yin and your yang components. So in terms of acupressure, now we do acupuncture, we do with needles, but I'm going to share with you, the public, anything that your acupuncturist does for you with a needle, you can do with your thumbs. It won't be quite as effective, but you know what? It's going to be helpful. So 2 points I like to use for this condition are kidney 3, which is, kidney 3 is located on the inside behind your ankle bone, right between the ankle bone and the Achilles tendon. And then liver 3, which is located right between the big toe and your second toe, approximately here, if we were imagining this to be the foot. And massaging those 2 points will be helpful. Most acupuncturists, if you're going to them for hot flashes, will most likely use those points, although there are dozens or hundreds of different styles of acupuncture. So let's take a look at some food types that will actually help cool and moisten the body. And I've got a little chart here, so we'll kind of go through this really quick, and we can focus in on that chart. We can see we have the following items: apples, asparagus, barley is very good to cool the body, also helps to move out any excess damp or wet. Cantaloupe is cooling, celery, cucumber, one of my favorites, very cooling. I highly recommend it in those hot summer days. Eggplant, mango, millet, mulberry, mung bean, very cooling, very commonly used in traditional Chinese soups for cooling in the summer. Mushrooms, octopus, yes, I know that's probably everybody's favorite. Oysters, pear, pork, sardine, tomato, and of course one of my other favorites, watermelon. In fact, the interesting thing about watermelon is if you eat the watermelon rind, that will actually be very cooling to the body. In fact, it could be too cooling, and sometimes if you overdo that, it'll actually damage the stomach and people will get stomach aches. But if you have too much fire and you're using watermelon brine, that actually will do a lot to cool things out. So I hope that gives you some ideas about how to think about and manage hot flashes and manage heat in the summer. Keep in mind that the important thing is if things get a little complicated, go see your family acupuncturist. Most all acupuncturists are trained in how to manage these types of things. Personally, I've had great success in managing menopausal symptoms for women. Probably my best case scenario, I had one gal come in with 4 acupuncture treatments, completely alleviated her hot flashes. More commonly, it may take 3 to 6 months depending on how bad and how severe. Usually we use a combination of acupuncture along with the herbs, along with diet. We do recommend things like yoga and calming activities like meditation to help with all of that. So we recommend, a full approach to that. So thank you again for watching, and have a pleasant day.